As Lewis and Clark led the Corps of Discovery along the Missouri River across the northern plains, they had several encounters with bison and bears.
On May 29th, they had a buffalo bull come running through camp. It literally jumped over that white P-row and broke up. York had a gun that was in the P-row and busted that gun all up and literally rampaged through the camp. You know, one of those frightful moments. These guys were all sleeping at that time. Another little, you know, how did that buffalo bull go all the way through that camp without stepping on one of their heads? Nobody knows.
They did not know about grizzly bears until they went out west. They didn't realize how vicious and how vicious they could be and how dangerous they could be.
They did note sometimes because of the small caliber of their rifle balls, they had to shoot bears more than once if they wanted to take them down because the ball was so small and the bears are so big.
I know there's one story in the journals that talks about Lewis who was out in an open field. He shot a buffalo through the heart. Buffalo dies, but he looks back and he hears a grizzly bear coming at him. That's very, very close. He has no time to reload his rifle, and he has to run. And he runs very fast, and he barely makes it to a river, and he jumps into the water, which gives him a little bit better standing with the bear. The bear sees him in the water and then decides to run away.
Some of the events revealed much about the character of people like Sacagawea and her husband, Charbonneau.
And the P-row already had a couple incidents earlier where it was flipping over. There was a wind gust that would flip over that white P-row.
It's when her husband loses control of the boat, and I love how they describe it in the journals, where he's just like, nope, I can't do this. And people are going flying and stuff is going flying and everybody's kind of freaking out. I think it was Juilliard that pointed a gun at him and said, you get this boat under control. And it's all very chaotic, and she just seems so level-headed, getting in the water, just collecting their items, very valuable items that they commend her on.
Sacagawea gets sick. I think it's around June 10th. She gets sick. This is about the time of the year. It's early summer. Every day she gets more and more ill, to the point where Clark starts to think she may not make it. She's dangerously ill. He actually says in the journals, I don't know what we're going to do if she dies. Lewis is at this point working ahead. He's trying to find those great falls. Clark is with the canoes. Lewis is going to come back to camp, and on his way back, he just happens to walk on the other side of the river, and he walks into a sulphur spring. He takes this sulphur water to her. By that time, she's delirious. She's twitching. He says she's just twitching uncontrollably. She's literally on her last leg. He brings over sulphur water and she starts to drink of that. What's interesting about this story is by nightfall, he gave it to her in the morning. By nightfall, she's miraculously better. She's even eating that night.
Eventually, Lewis makes essentially a southward movement from where the Missouri River is northeast of here. And as he moves further south, he begins to hear this noise. And he's thinking, is that a waterfall? Well, he continues to move further to the south, and eventually he is standing above what we now know as the Great Falls of the Missouri.
Seeing all the falls, though, Lewis says that he doesn't have enough words to express how beautiful it is. Also that realization, this is not going to be an easy one-day portage.
When they find the Great Falls, Lewis is all excited. He thinks it's only a half-day portage. So he goes start to check that area out. He realizes it's not one fall, but 5 cascades he's got to get around.
Wow, this is beautiful. This is amazing, but oh no, we didn't plan for this.
It's essentially 18 miles of falls he's got to portage around.
It turned out to be really 3 weeks of grueling labor to move their canoes and gear around the Great Falls of the Missouri.
The terrain is very rough. It is marked with prickly pear cactus. There are deep gullies sometimes and ravines that you have to maneuver around or work your way through.
These boats are heavy, their stuff is heavy, the landscape is pretty unforgiving with the prickly pears.
On top of just the difficulty of the terrain, they are also dealing with grizzly bears, dealing with what they call prickly pears, these large burrs that would stick to your clothing and then you would have to yank it off and destroy your clothing along the way.
Then you run into the weather conditions that prevail typically in the month of June in this area. That much has not changed in 200 years.
There were massive storms that were softball-size hail. It was just a very, very difficult portage.
There are references in the journals to the men getting caught in these storms and getting welts on their body from the hailstones because there is no natural cover for them to go to.
It was a very slow-going section of the expedition, but they needed to move fast because they needed to get across the Bitterroot Mountains. So there's also this sort of notion of fear here. They have to get to a certain point in order to make it across the mountains.
It was treacherous by any measure. It was a very difficult journey. By the time they finally make it to the southwest end of what is now Great Falls and establish their upper portage camp, they're relieved beyond measure.
For more information or to become involved with the Lewis and Clark Trail Alliance, visit lewisandclark.org. To learn more about Shenandoah University and the Shenandoah Center for Immersive Learning, visit su.edu/skill.